Alright guys, what's up? In this video we are going to be talking about, keyboard mouse mechanics versus controller mechanics. And really, what's better? Well, obviously keyboard and mouse mechanics, because you don't get the same deal with controller. Well, controller mechanics can still be better. So the thing about controller mechanics, it's very movement wise in directions D and A on a keyboard, which would be right, left, or left, right, whatever you want. They're very based on this movement. Meanwhile, keyboard is kind of like a W and D, because they always do side jumps and stuff. They usually go forward using their mechanics, which is better than doing something like that. It's just they have better out movement, and their movement can be played much smarter than controller, especially with the new update that they got a while ago. It was the double movement, which controller players got. Honestly, I'm okay with double movement. It's just, if you give it to keyboard mouse players who already have the advantage in movement, I really don't think it's fair, because they already have an advantage in movement, But controller mechanics, they've been very, you rely on double movement a lot, and it's just been very smooth, and you have to act smooth and stuff. Usually go sideways. That's how controller players have to do mechanics. They kind of have to go sideways, not forward. That doesn't work on controller. See? This doesn't work on controller like it does on keyboard. If you try and do that on keyboard, you can just press the keys to be more straightforward. Meanwhile, you'll probably have trouble doing something like this on keyboard. You'll probably have trouble doing something like that, because it's not controller movement. Yeah, keyboard and mouse players just have better mechanics and, just better mechanics, I guess. Controller mechanics, mainly, I think the biggest mechanic on controller that people do is probably the Monroe Classic or anything that involves piece control. Because that's the easiest, because it's easy to make a box on controller, since you have that easy movement. Meanwhile, you can do something like this on keyboard. You just have to, try harder on keyboard. And it's just very easy to make a box on controller compared to keyboard. Meanwhile, keyboard mechanics, they involve a bunch of edits. Meanwhile, controller mechanics are kind of simple, and they rely on three build stuff, not any 4 builds. I'm not really sure what the best mechanics are. All I know that it's pretty much something like this. Which I don't understand why. I don't understand why side jumps are so popular. They are not a good mechanic, trust me. If you want to get height, don't do a side jump, do a box jump. Since it's easier, it's faster, and it's basically like a side jump. But it's just way more protected, and it's just all out better. So don't do normal side jumps. Do protective side jumps. Also, I think controller mechanics are very boxy. You build boxes all the time, like I'm doing. These are my controller mechanics. See how it kind of involves a bunch of cones and boxes? Those are basically what controller mechanics are. and they are very simple, and usually go to the right, to the left, and keyboard mechanics just don't do that. They really just involve simplistic builds, you know, some retakes, some fast edits, you know, side jumps. Honestly, you know, keyboard still wins, but their movement is just, you know. Yeah, it's just their movement's better. Now, controller, people always complain how hard it is to build or edit. You just have to get used to it. Like, I think building and editing is hard on keyboard and mouse because it involves 2 buttons. Meanwhile, I can just press 1 on controller. Also, the thing about 90s is that controller players, you never, like, if you're a controller player, don't do this, don't do this. Because what you're doing is, first of all, you're screwing up your movement, because you'll be over here. And, you know, your character's more to the left of your screen than it is right. So you always, and with the movement, since, you know, you have to be very strict with your movement because of your character movement. It might throw you off at first, trying to learn new mechanics on controller because of your placement of the character on screen and, you know, just building in general. So about keyboard mechanics, I don't usually play keyboard, but what I can understand about keyboard mechanics is just you always want to do things that, one, involve like a WASD type thing. Like, I'm gonna press WASD on my keyboard right now. You kind of want to be over here side jumping, because you already have that advantage in the first place of side jumping, and you can always like go diagonal this way, meanwhile controller goes this way, which is almost like double movement. So your mechanics can be technically faster sideways, but controller players do it because it's just easier to movement. Now, I do find it kind of unfair that controller players have aim assist, but again, if you think about it, they give keyboard and mouse players all out better movement, less delay, and, you know, they have more opportunities on buttons. I mean, yeah, you can attach paddles, smartass, but again, those are really uncomfortable unless you play claw. Because I'm not gonna use my ring fingers just so I can edit faster. No. What, do you want me to get arthritis when this game dies? Yeah, it's just all out. The thing is just keyboard mechanics are better because of movement, like Epic. Listen here, there should be an option where if you plug in a controller, you can get a very strict WASD movement. Like, you can kind of get a, without kind of curving to the left all the time. Like, I hope Epic just does that. Like, you don't always have to curve to the left to aim. All you gotta do is just press A on a keyboard. Meanwhile, you have to do all this, and you get double movement. Just kind of curves, throws you off, and it's just not the best thing. Another thing with mechanics is that controller mechanics and keyboard mechanics do not go together. Doing controller mechanics on keyboard and doing keyboard mechanics on controller is kind of like orange juice and toothpaste. They don't go together. What you gotta do is find these mechanics that balance between movement and usefulness and, you know, like smart things like piece control and, you know, placement of builds and, like, I guess. So it's just, keyboard mechanics are better, but all I have to say is that do mechanics that fit your movement. Like, just do mechanics that, you know, help on the joystick, that mix well with joysticks and like mixes well with WASD, and, you know, build simple on keyboard, kind of be complex on controller, because if you build simple on keyboard, you'll be over here just cranking out, doing the best mechanics, you know. Don't do regular side jumps though, like I just did. Also, if you want to do 90s on controller, you're better off doing this because it doesn't throw off your movement as much as going WASD movement. Because that ruins your whole controller momentum. Another thing is like editing mechanics. Those are good. But the thing is, if you're not really fast at editing, I wouldn't recommend doing all these crazy mechanics that like somebody like Raider would do, or somebody like BH Reload, even though his mechanics aren't really the best. Also, you don't need fancy retakes. No, all fancy retakes are gonna do is make you an easy target, and literally all they do is intimidate your opponent. Whenever I see somebody doing fancy retakes like that, I'm like, oh, they're just trying to, you know, scare me away. And it's like, I get height using zone wars mechanics in a 1v1. Like, most likely those high ground retakes, quote, never get you high ground. Not only do 90s absolutely outplay high ground retake players, like, just don't do any of that face sway BS. Like, no hate on face sway, but don't do any like just crazy builds. Those aren't worth it in the long run, and you're just an easy target. Because if you were to do it, you would just be over here waiting. Like, you're basically setting yourself up for a free target. Because you're over here like, boom, can get shot right here. Can get shot from the back right here. Can get shot right here. Get shot multiple times. And just, if you go for these crazy edit plays, something like this, just don't. That makes you, like, if you do so many edits, like cultures, you'll have horrible mechanics. Like, your mechanics are dreadful if you edit fast. Like, if you use actual 1v1 mechanics, like Raider, even though he's a fast editor, don't be over here flexing your edits and stuff. You'll have the worst mechanics guaranteed. That's why Raider doesn't do all this cultures crap that he does. Like that. No. All I'm saying is that pick a mechanic that fits your movement. It's nice and, like, simple. You know. And, you know, don't be fancy with edits. It's okay to be fancy with edits, but just don't do fast edit mechanics. Don't do those triple edit mechanics. Those are horrible. Because what do you think's faster? Doing that or doing something like that? Yeah. Like, just no high ground, no protection. It's just horrible. So, goodbye, guys. Hope this video teaches you something about mechanics and like what you should and shouldn't do. And if you want to learn more about something like this, check out Darian's channel. His link will not be in the description because 9 out of 10 people that watch this will even get 10 views for this. Will probably know who Darian is. Alright, bye.